We'll start this committee hearing as a subcommittee. We don't have a quorum right now, but more members will be joining us. Both parties had caucuses that are breaking right now. I'd like to first welcome all of you. I know many of you are here for a bill on DPT programs. We will be hearing that in due course. The author is not available right now. He's chairing a different meeting, so we will get there. I want to, first of all, introduce myself to you. My name is Marty Block. This is my first meeting as chair of the Higher Ed Committee, and I'm very pleased to be the chair and want to take a moment to thank the outgoing chair for the fine work he's done. He's not here right now, but will be joining us soon. But for the record, Anthony Portantino has been the chair of higher education and has done a fabulous job over the years, and my thanks to Anthony. I also want to thank, as we're starting my first meeting in this tenure, the consultants, my staff in higher ed, Sandy Freed on my right and Laura Mattoon on her right. They will be working with us. They do an incredible job of analyzing the bills and providing us with input on those bills. And on my left is our committee secretary, Melissa Carrion. And this is Melissa's last meeting as board secretary. She says it's nothing personal. But she will be pursuing greener pastures, and we wish her great luck as she joins the East Bay Mud. Our loss is their gain. Also want to welcome, if she's in the audience now, she was here earlier, Karen Teal, who will be the new secretary beginning our next meeting. And also want to thank for work he's done in the year, more than a year that I've been on the Higher Ed Committee as a member, although not chair, Ted Blanchard, the Republican consultant, for fine work. And I want to welcome our new vice chair, Chris Norby, newly elected member from Orange County, and welcome also the other new members to Higher Ed Committee, Gene Fuller, who is here, and other members who aren't here quite yet. Many of you know I've been working in higher education for many years, 8 years as president of a community college board in San Diego, worked for 26 years as a dean, director, and professor at San Diego State University. So higher education is what truly is important to me, and my emphasis in higher ed issues is in access, quality, affordability, coordination between the segments, and funding. And I look forward to a great year with this committee and pursuing those issues, particularly access for students and affordability. And several of our bills today will touch on those issues. I'd like to ask my vice chair, Mr. Norby, if he wants to make a few comments.
Thank you, Chair Block. You've got the Aztecs in your district. I've got the Titans. And they are among 151 different institutions of public higher education, the community colleges, state universities, and UCs in our state, in addition to a countless number of private colleges and universities, trade schools, and other institutions of higher learning. Fullerton is in the heart of my district, where I grew up, the oldest continually operating junior college in the country. Fullerton College was only a few blocks from my home, where I took a few classes in the summer. And at the time that I was a kid, one of the newest Cal State Fullerton, was opening up in an Orange Grove, which was fast disappearing on the eastern side of town, where I got my master's degree and my teaching credential. My BA was at a private college, Occidental College, which counts a number of distinguished political alums, including our president, Obama. So like all of you, many of you here, I've had experience in a number of different levels of higher education. Higher education is defined as that which begins after you're finished with high school. And up into high school, up until the time you're 18 years old, the law, hopefully your parents, have a lot of control over who you are and what you do. But after that point, you're an adult. And the pathways are many for you to choose. And they continue not just until you're 21 or 22, but all the way until the end of your life. Because higher education is not just a destination, it is a journey. And it is a journey that takes many pathways for all the different people that we have in our states through many different institutions. And I'm privileged to serve you, Chairman Block, on this committee as we regulate, as we fund, as we talk about the issues which deal with these institutions and the people they serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norby. We'll move now to the first bill today. It is from Assemblywoman Brownlee. AB 2297. Ms. Brownlee?
This one.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. Thank you for this opportunity. First, I would like to accept the committee amendments and really thank the staff for your help and support and diligence on simplifying not a complicated bill, but one that could be complicated and making sense out of it. So we really appreciate it. California is treating community college non-resident students much more favorably than other states treat California residents. This is unfair to California residents. Unlike the University of California and the California State University, California community colleges are not authorized to establish their own non-resident foreign student tuition policies. Instead, they are required to follow a specific formula. The disparity in financial support by resident and non-resident students is felt all the more sharply in this fiscal crisis, which has induced the state to reduce the amount of general fund support for community colleges. While the cost of educating all students has increased, funding for community colleges has decreased, which has resulted in an unintended benefit for non-resident students. AB 2297 provides a mechanism for a community college to increase its current level of non-resident tuition as long as it is no greater than the average fee charged in at least 12 states with a cost of living comparable to California's. AB 2297 would give community colleges greater authority to charge non-residents a fee that could be used to improve the quality of education for all of the community college students. I want to thank you for the opportunity and certainly respectfully ask for an aye vote. And I have several witnesses in attendance. I have Ms. Louise Jaffe, who is a Santa Monica Community College Board of Trustees, and Don Gerard, also from Santa Monica Community College, who is the Senior Director of Governmental Relations and Institutional Communications.
Thank you, Ms. Brownlee. Thank you, Ms. Brownlee. Before we hear from your witness, we do have a quorum present now, so will the Secretary please read the roll?
Black.
Here.
Black here. Norby.
Here.
Norby here. Adams. Adams here. Chesbro. Fong. Fuller. Here. Fuller here. Galgiani. Portantino. Ruskin. Here. Ruskin here.
Sorry, Ms. Brownlee, you may proceed with your witnesses now.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Louise Jaffe. I'm trustee for Santa Monica College and the past chair. All of us in California have been spending a lot of time poring over our budgets. When looking at budgets for the next few years, we noted what we believe is an unintended and somewhat contrary outcome of the current law. Under current law, the formula for setting non-resident tuition is based on the level of state general fund support. However, because of the state's fiscal crisis, general fund support for community colleges has declined. This results in a decrease in community college non-resident tuition, even though the costs have increased, and it places a burden on California taxpayers. We do not believe California can afford to decrease tuition for non-resident students at a time when community colleges up and down the state are reducing student services and the state is considering increasing fees for our resident students. In researching this problem, we also discovered that California is giving non-resident students a way better deal than other states give California residents. Providing community college boards with a mechanism that will allow us to raise non-resident fees fairly so that they are comparable to and no greater than the fees other states charge our students will provide some additional revenue for California community colleges to maintain both access and quality. It's important to emphasize that Title V regs prohibit non-resident students from taking seats away from resident students. In practice, non-resident students help provide classes and services for resident students. This past year, California community colleges served about 1.3 million full-time equivalent students. Of these, 1.2 million were resident students that the state paid for. 47,000 were non-resident students who paid their own tuition, and 55,000 were resident students that no one paid for, what is commonly called over cap. At Santa Monica College, we're serving over 1,700 full-time equivalent students, and non-resident tuition is part of what makes it possible for us to do that. In California, there are more than 30 community college districts whose non-resident tuition is about 2% of their general fund or greater, including Santa Monica College, Foothill de Anza, Pasadena, Peralta, Contra Costa, San Francisco, South Orange County, Redwoods, Merced, San Diego, and North Orange County. All community college districts receive some non-resident student fees. AB 2297 provides important financial relief to local community college districts. It's consistent with the practices in place for UC and CSU, but more modest, and it takes guidance from comparable states and caps possible tuition as being no higher than what comparable states charge our residents. AB 2297 protects California taxpayers, provides equity for California residents, and augments funding for community colleges to maintain access and quality. We hope you will support it. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and Don Gerard is here from Santa Monica College, too. And I see Bonnie is here from the California League. No.
Mr. Chairman, Bonnie Slauson, representing the Chief Executive Officers of the California Community Colleges, and we are here to urge your support and passage of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other witnesses in support? Are there any witnesses in opposition? Do members have any questions? Mr. Adams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Brownlee, thank you for bringing this bill before us. Our analysis indicates an interesting point. It talks about how this is a particularly complicated area of law, and that the repeal of subsection E of Ed Code 76140 might be a far better way to go, and then just give the electeds the discretion to make determinations about what the fee should be at market, insofar as it fully subsidizes the California part of the tuition. I wish we could take a much more simple approach. I think this is a little verbose, to be perfectly candid with you. But notwithstanding that, I think we achieve the same goal either way, and for that matter, when the time comes, I'd be happy to support the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Any other? Mr. Norby.
SMC has a reputation of being a funnel into the UC system. I think you have the highest rate of college four-year transfer students there at Santa Monica College. Highest number, right. And so a lot of kids will go there, in-state kids, because their parents figure, look, I can save 2 years tuition at UCLA by sending my son to SMC, my son or daughter, and a lot of out-of-staters as well. We benefit by that because hopefully they stay here, and we benefit by their education, but it is a tremendous expense, and I think it's legitimate that it be recouped. I agree with my colleague, Assemblyman Adams, that there could be a better solution to this, but the perfect is never the enemy of the good, and certainly I will support this, hoping that we continue to take a comprehensive look at fees for the out-of-state students. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Norby. Any other questions? If not, we will ask if you have any closing.
Well, I'll just say that I appreciate the comments from both Mr. Adams and Mr. Norby, and we will certainly take those comments as we move forward, take under consideration the comments as we move forward with this bill.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the bill.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. The motion before us is due pass as amended to appropriations. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Block.
Aye.
Block, aye. Norby. Aye. Norby, aye. Adams. Adams, aye. Chesbro. Fong. Fuller. Aye. Fuller, aye. Galgiani. Portantino. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye.
That's 5. Okay, your bill is out.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bonnie.
Who's number 2? Okay, we move on now to a bill by Mr. Torlakson and Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Assemblymember Mike Davis and I have been working together on this legislation, joint authors. He, with expertise, is chair of the Arts, Entertainment, and Sports Committee. This is a bill about fairness, about dreams that should be supported, dreams that should be realized, but dreams that are too often shattered. This is about student athletes who are recruited usually at age 17, high school athletes who colleges are seeking to be part of their teams. And of course, for many of these 17-year-olds, and having been a high school coach for 25 years, I know the exuberance of that time where they're being sought after, where they have many choices. They have worked for years to get the skills and talent to participate in the sport of their choice at the university level. But what has happened is not enough clarity, not enough transparency in what the scholarship offers are, so that the athlete's parents may hear a lot of very wonderful things about what will be done. A full ride. What does a full ride scholarship mean? Is it 4 years? Is it 5 years? Does it cover room and board and books and fees? Does it cover medical expenses if the athlete is injured while playing that sport? And what happens to the scholarship if the athlete is injured and cannot continue to play the following season, but may be able to play again in their senior year, for instance? We believe, and this bill would require, we believe that disclosure of the details of what the college is offering is important up front, so the athlete and the parents have an understanding of what that is. We believe that it is important as the process of discussion goes forward between the recruiter and the athlete, that at the end of that time there's also a disclosure of what's finally agreed on as to the specifics. This will help everyone be able to move forward with, again, a sense of fairness and respect. A recent study done by Ithaca College in New York looking at college sports indicated that most often, on an average, there is either $200 to $400 shortfall per year, all the way up to $6,000 shortfall per year to student athletes over what they were promised and what they got. So this is, again, a bill about transparency and fairness and living up to obligations. My colleague.
Thank you very much. And committee, it's an honor to join Mr. Turgleson in this bill. Simply put, this bill will ensure that student athletes are considered as consumers and that the responsibility of the athletic program is to make it crystal clear, specifically everything that will be offered to the student in writing as well. Often those who are representing the university's athletic program may be a little excited and the information that they're sharing not be clear. But in ways in which business is done everywhere, students need to be the recipients of those practices. And in other words, we're saying student athletes deserve to have in writing, as they will in the rest of their lives, in business negotiations in which they might engage. They deserve here and now as students to be very clear in writing what the offers will be in detail from the university. And so we respectfully ask for your support on this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Charleston. Mr. Davis, your witnesses now.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Durrell Chamorro. I live in Chino, California, and I'm 23 years old. When I was 17, I was offered 4 full scholarships to play Division I football. During my recruitment process, I was told that as long as I maintained at least a 2.0 GPA and I didn't break any rules, I'd have my scholarship for 4 to 5 years. My position coach even flew down from Colorado and had dinner in my home with my family and I thought my lifelong dream was finally going to come true and all my hard work was going to start paying off. However, after 2 years in Colorado, I was called up to the head coach's office and told that I would not have a scholarship for the following year, which was the surprise of my life. I had a 3.4 GPA, I wasn't breaking any rules, and I didn't think that they could do that. When I told my friends on the team what Coach Lubick had told me, they didn't think it could happen either, but it happened. And so as much as I wanted to graduate from Colorado State, I simply could not afford the out-of-state tuition, and so I was forced to transfer to Cal Poly Pomona. And come to find out, the Cal States and the UCs don't have any formal course equivalency agreements with Colorado State. That meant a bunch of the classes I took in Colorado didn't transfer over, and so I was forced to take a bunch of classes at a JC, even though I should have been a junior, just so that Cal Poly would consider admitting me. And I had to take a bunch of expensive summer school classes, and I even had to change my major just so that it wouldn't take me 6 years to earn a bachelor's degree. Please, don't let what happened to me happen to other students. Choosing where they will go to school and where they could spend the next 4 to 5 years of their lives is a decision that will affect the rest of their lives. This bill will help them ask the right questions and make the most informed decisions for their futures. It's too late for me, but it's not too late for thousands of students. A
Thank you.
promise made should be a promise kept.
2 additional witnesses, no more than 2 minutes each, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Ramogi Huma. I'm a former UCLA football player and the president of the NCPA, the National College Players Association. The NCPA is an advocacy group made up of over 14,000 Division I student athletes from universities in California and across the nation. And I'm here to declare the NCPA's strong support for AB 2079. The majority of recruits, who are typically only 16 and 17 years old, are deciding which college to attend based on false information given to them by college coaches. As a result, most recruits and their parents have no idea that colleges can leave them with sports-related medical expenses, take away their scholarship if they're injured, and leave them with tens of thousands of dollars in educational-related expenses. Last year, the NCPA study revealed that 1 in 5 players disappeared from the rosters of NCAA basketball tournament teams, and meanwhile, coaches continue to promise 4-year scholarships despite the fact they're capped at 1 year. Another NCPA study found that student athletes on full scholarship were expected to pay an average of $2,700 per year in educational-related expenses. These expenses were as low as $200 and as high as over $6,000 depending on the school. The same universities can offer full academic scholarships that cover all expenses. They offer full athletic scholarships that are designed to leave large out-of-pocket expenses. This deception puts even the most financially responsible student athlete at risk for financial difficulties. The NCAA, along with 90% of Division I universities, refused an NCPA request to disclose important medical policy information. Last summer, the New York Times reported extensively about student athletes stuck with sports-related medical bills. Whether or not you believe that an athletic program should cover sports-related medical bills or provide full scholarships that fully cover expenses, it's hard to argue against making recruits aware about what they should expect to pay out of pocket. It's also tough to argue that it's okay for universities to offer 4-year scholarships that don't even exist. AB 2079 is an excellent way to address abusive recruiting practices. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jeremy Smith here on behalf of the California Labor Federation, here in solidarity with the NCPA. The only difference between college athletes and professional athletes obviously is professional athletes get paid. But when they get injured, when they're hurt, the teams pay for their hospitalization and their surgeries and their recuperation. Student athletes don't get the same protection. Yet the student athletes make the universities a lot of money, especially the football programs, the basketball programs, just like professional athletes do for their teams. So this is something that recruits and student athletes should be made aware of, that a full scholarship doesn't always mean full. What the meaning of full is should be disclosed. So we're here in support. We hope you can support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional witnesses in support? Are there any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, are there any questions, Mr. Draper?
And we accept the committee's amendments.
Thank you.
I'll move the bill with the committee's amendments.
Is there a second? I'll second the bill as chair. At this point, we lack a quorum, but we'll go ahead and take a vote. Let's have your close first.
Appreciate the work of your excellent staff in helping us shape the bill. Again, urge that as we have these aspiring athletes, these talented young men and women go off to college, that they get at the starting line a fair start, and it's fair all the way across to the finish line. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
The motion before us is due pass as amended to the Arts, Entertainment, Sports, Tourism, and Internet Media Committee. Secretary, call the roll.
Block.
Aye.
Block, aye. Norby. Adams. Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Fong. Fuller. Aye. Fuller, aye. Galgiani. Portantino. Ruskin.
Okay, the bill will go on call. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, members.
Thank you.
We move on now to, who's next? Mr. Solario, Assemblymember Solario.
Thank you, Chairman Block and members. This bill addresses the high cost of textbooks within our community colleges. I appreciate the amendments offered by the committee and do accept them. As amended, the bill would encourage the 3 segments of higher education to review and revise current articulation agreements to ensure that students may use textbooks regardless of their age, as long as the information contained in the textbook is current and contemporary to the subject matter. Often students are forced to buy new textbooks rather than less expensive versions, even if the information is still current. In a time of increasing tuition fees, we need to continue to find ways to curb the high costs imposed on our college students, including in the area of textbooks. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Slario. Any witnesses?
I know there's a witness or two.
Is there a witness in support
out there
coming
in
forward? Yes.
Supports.
Happy Chastain, University of California, in support. We'd like to thank the author for his leadership in this area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to pass as amended to appropriations.
So moved.
Moved by Member Chesbro, seconded by Member Galgiani. Any questions? Comments? We'll move to a vote then. Secretary, call the roll.
Block.
Aye.
Block, aye. Norby. Adams. Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Fong. Fuller. Aye. Fuller, aye. Galgiani. Galgiani, aye. Portantino. Ruskin.
You've got 4 votes. Place on call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any authors? We're currently taking a short moment to try to get another author up here. Okay, I do have a bill that I can present since there is a gap here. Assemblymember Chesbro, would you take over the chair?
Sure. Can we do it from here? Mr. Block, presenting AB 2682.
Thank you, Mr. Chesbro. My bill, AB 2682, requires the Board of Governors of the California Community Colleges to establish a pilot project that will create a uniform, centrally delivered system of student assessment. I do propose some author's amendments to the bill as you have it. I ask we strike page 2, lines 16 to 25 regarding K-12 testing information, pending further exploration by stakeholders of perhaps better language. Currently, about 70% of incoming community college students do not have adequate preparation to perform successfully in college-ready courses. Accurate assessment is vital to ensuring that these students are placed in the appropriate basic skills classes that build on their foundation for success. Unfortunately, there's currently no uniform assessment tool, and instead districts use dozens of different tests to assess readiness. In effect, these community colleges all have a different definition of college readiness. And unfortunately, students moving from one college to another frequently have to take different assessment tests. AB 2682 provides campuses the option of using a standardized assessment tool, one that will let students take their scores from one campus to another. The standardized tool is a step in the right direction. According to a model by the Chancellor's Office, this tool will allow us to assess more than 1 million more students while saving $5 million. Supporters of this bill include our sponsor, the Chancellor's Office of California Community Colleges, as well as the California Post-Secondary Education Commission, the Community College League, and the community college districts of Kern, LA, Los Rios, and Yosemite. With me today are members of the California Community College District, Paul Steenhausen, Principal Fiscal Policy Analyst with the Legislative Analyst's Office. I see we have, well, is Reed here?
She's delayed.
Okay.
Her flight was delayed.
Okay. We'll just proceed with the witnesses who are here.
Okay.
Marla, do you want to?
Witnesses in favor?
My name is Marlene Garcia, and I'm the Vice Chancellor for Government Relations for the California Community College Chancellor's Office. The Board of Governors are the sponsors of this bill, and we're appreciative to have the opportunity to bring it before you today. We think this is an important model that's encompassed in this bill, because what it does is it helps us do our job better in serving students while enjoying some significant cost savings. As Assemblymember Block explained, the program will allow students who move around different community colleges to use the same assessment tool or to use the same assessment score that they took the first time they were able to take the assessment for placement. That information is going to be stored centrally, so students, if they move from college to college, the college will be able to retrieve that information from the central data warehouse to be able to place these students in the appropriate courses. As you know, we have a number of students that come into the community colleges requiring basic skills and remediation, so this assessment is critical to get them into those pre-collegiate courses they so need to get into college level coursework. What we find is with the cost savings, we're, instead of requiring the colleges to take advantage of this opportunity, we're providing a fiscal incentive, because this is going to be offered to them at a fraction of the cost of what they currently pay to negotiate with local vendors to purchase their own local tests. So they won't have to do that anymore. Instead, they can, with those cost savings, they can reinvest in being able to administer more assessment tests that so many students need, and in some cases, after budget cuts, they've had to limit the number of assessments they can even provide. So currently the system provides about 1.5 million tests. We administer 1.5 million tests annually. So this would allow us to reach more students who are in need of this test so that they can get through their English, math, or English as a second language. So we urge your support. This bill has been through a vetting process with the community college stakeholders through a APG, well, actually a working group, and we've been able to benefit from the input from numerous community college experts throughout the system, including the LAO has made it clear to us that we need to move in this direction, so we've been appreciative of the LAO's involvement in advising us every step of the way. So I urge your support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Thank you. Paul Steenhausen with the Legislative Analyst's Office. While our office does not generally support or oppose bills, AB 2682 is consistent with recommendations we've made in the past. One of the key issues we identified in a report we did a year or so ago, Back to Basics, concerns the assessment process for incoming community college students. What we found is there's significant variation in terms of what skills the tests assess and how much students are expected to know. You have variation among the colleges in terms of the assessment tests they use. So you can have a student at College A take an assessment test and be told they're college ready to take college level English and math. Same student go to another, could go to College B and be told you're not quite ready. So they're different. This variation, as you can imagine, is confusing to students and parents, as well as teachers and other high school staff or K-12 staff. It's hard for them to know what to aim for, what standards to aim for. And in addition, there have been other studies showing that none of the current assessment tests used by the community colleges is fully aligned with K-12 standards. So we think that students would be better served by a statewide test that's available to all community college students, which is the purpose of this proposed common online assessment test. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Deborah Harmon on behalf of State Center Community College District. The district would just add that as we're focused on student success, that they believe that to quantify that student success, we have to have common standards for assessment. So they are in support.
Thank you. Next witness.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Committee. Bonnie Slauson representing the Community College League. And the League was a participant in the consultative process which developed this legislative proposal as well as the ongoing task force that Vice Chancellor Garcia mentioned. We believe that this legislation will help to guide students, provide mobility in their assessment and data, as well as efficiencies. We believe that it will reduce cost for the colleges, for the students, and for the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you. And if we could make some room for some additional witnesses. And I'll ask the additional witnesses to be brief since we've heard four witnesses go into some detail.
Right. Thank you, Mark McDonald, McCallum Group, on behalf of the Los Angeles, Los Rios, Kern, and Yosemite Community College districts. I won't repeat what the witnesses just said, but we're in support and urge your support as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Julia Blair with the Post-Secondary Education Commission. We're also in support.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in favor? If there are none, then I'll ask for witnesses in opposition. There appears to be no witnesses in opposition. Is there any question? Are there any questions from committee members? Comments? A motion?
Move the bill.
The bill's been moved. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Block.
Aye.
Block, aye. Norby. Adams. Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Fong. Fuller. Fuller, aye. Galgiani. Galgiani, aye. Portantino. Portantino, aye. Ruskin.
That bill is out.
Assemblymember Anderson, your bill is next.
Thank you, Chairman Block, members of the committee. I introduced AB 2150 in an effort to recognize and reward veterans for their service to our country. This straightforward bill offers in-state tuition at California colleges for our military veterans. I want to thank the chair and his staff for the amendments. It's important that we honor these veterans who wish to pursue higher education.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Witnesses?
Casey Elliott with Townsend Public Affairs on behalf of Veterans for Foreign Wars Department of California. VFW is supportive of this bill that would reward our service members by exempting them from non-resident tuition. We feel that this measure would increase their access to higher education, thereby allowing them to get advanced degrees and special skills trainings that they need to integrate back into civilian life. Thank you.
Move the bill.
Second.
As amended, correct?
As amended. I'll second it.
Another witness? Are there any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in support? Are there any witnesses in opposition to the bill as amended? Okay, yeah, just so it's clear, the amendments have taken out all of the bill that is not directly related to veterans getting in-state residence tuition. So the part that, for some of you may be here to talk about the part that related to AB 540, that has been amended out of the bill at this point. With that in mind, are there any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, we have a motion that's been seconded. The author recommends do pass as amended to the Appropriations Committee and thanks the author for bringing a bill that recognizes the service provided to our country by the veterans. Thank you. We'll ask the Secretary now to take the roll.
Block.
Aye.
Block, aye. Norby. Adams. Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Fong. Fuller. Fuller, aye. Galgiani. Galgiani, aye. Portantino. Portantino, aye. Ruskin.
Adams, aye.
So we have six. You have 6 votes. The bill is out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson? Okay, Ms. Lowenthal is next. You may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. AB 1971 will allow the University of California and California State University to continue their affinity partnerships by simply extending their sunset date for 5 years, 5 more years. Currently, UC and CSU alumni organizations partner with commercial vendors to seek private funding for scholarships and to provide opportunities for alumni. This bill is similar to last year's AB 1222, which received no votes, but was vetoed by the governor. This bill addresses the veto by extending rather than eliminating the sunset date. These affinity partnerships are authorized under privacy laws to support programs and services for alumni that students and campuses benefit from. AB 1971 is sponsored by UC and CSU. I have 2 members here with UC and CSU who are here to testify in support.
Mr. Chair, I move the bill.
I ask for your aye vote.
Second. Bill's been moved and seconded.
I'm just going to say I'm Karen Yelverton Zamaripa with the California State University. We support the bill and appreciate the committee's support. Thank you.
Happy Chastain, University of California, in support.
Julia Blair with the Post-Secondary Education Commission in support.
Any further witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? We have a motion that has been seconded. Do pass to the Judiciary Committee.
I have a semi-serious comment.
Please.
You know, we had to ask the LAO to do a report on how much it costs to have to put a bill through a second time, because the only reason the governor gave to veto it was that it was premature.
Yeah.
I don't really mean that, because the report would cost money, so, but it just seems kind of ludicrous we have to go through this a second time when it's widely supported, and I don't know, maybe somebody's listening in the governor's office, you know.
Any other comments or questions? In this case, I'll ask the Secretary to please call the roll.
Block.
Aye.
Block, aye. Norby. Adams. Adams, aye. Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Fong. Fuller. Fuller, aye. Galgiani. Galgiani, aye. Portantino. Portantino, aye. Ruskin.
Okay, your bill is out. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next author is Assemblymember Hernandez. Okay, Mr. Hernandez, welcome. You may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm here to present AB 2047, a bill that ensures that the legislature continues to strive towards racial and social equality in our higher educational institutions. As you may know, current law declares that the legislature's intent that the University of California and the California State University enroll a student that meets high academic standards and reflects a cultural, racial, geographic, economic, and social diversity in the state of California. However, it is very clear that the diversity of the California population is not reflected in our public educational, higher education learning. The educational gap continues to grow as a higher percentage of minority students today are UC and CSU eligible, but the percentage of those admitted has dropped or fluctuated to the numbers similar to 1995. This bill attempts to remedy this issue by authorizing the University of California and the California State University to consider, and I must restate that, to consider cultural, race, gender, ethnicity, national origin, geographic origin, and household income, along with other relevant factors in undergraduate and graduate admissions, so long as no preference is given. If and when the university, campus, college, school, or program is attempting to obtain an educational benefit through recruitment of a diverse student body. And I am aware of the California Constitution prohibits the state from discriminating against or granting preferential treatment to any individual or group on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in the operation of public employment, public education, and public contracting. That's why this bill also prohibits preferential treatment, because it simply permits the UC and the CSU, as I mentioned earlier, to only consider cultural, race, gender, ethnicity, national origin, and household income. The key language in this bill states the consideration of race, gender, national origin, geographic origin, household may take place so long as no preference is given. I'm extremely concerned with the issues of access for underrepresented populations in the state of California, with ongoing cuts occurring statewide for public university institutions. Our underrepresented and most vulnerable populations will increasingly encounter limited access to higher education, and I hope and consider your support for this bill, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Any witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Please state your name.
My name is Diane Schachterly. I'm with the American Civil Rights Coalition. I faxed to each member of this committee detailed legal analysis of this bill as it is in this incarnation, and it was in its two previous incarnations. As this bill has come up in this committee and through the legislature, this is the third time. So someone expressed concern about multiple times through the process. It was vetoed the first time. Governor Schwarzenegger, after reading the legal analysis, determined that, in fact, it would be declared unconstitutional. The case law is extensive that says that the University of California and all education may not consider race, may not think about race, may not use race. And, in fact, the courts say that you may not even classify by race. This, in fact, classifying persons by race is prohibited by Proposition 209. So I would urge the committee to vote no and not cost the taxpayers any more money by passing a bill that will be declared in the courts or vetoed by the governor as unconstitutional.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, my earlier comments were with regards to a bill that was widely supported, and really there was no reason to veto it other than that. And obviously there's a disagreement with the governor on this subject, and I, for one, would like to see us have a much more broadly accessible higher education system for the future population of this state, and I'll be happy to move the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chesbrough. The bill has been moved. Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Questions, other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Adams.
Just one comment, just to Mr. Chesbrough's point. This bill is distinctly different from last year's bill, though. So not to cast dispersions on your comments, I agree with you completely. I can't stand the idea of wasting money having to do something twice when you had unanimous support for a bill. But just for the record's sake, I want to clarify that I'm not going to be able to support this bill because it's vastly different than last year. But I do support your position.
We should probably stop going down that road. I don't know why I responded to the witness.
Okay, and Chair's comments on this, the witness in opposition may be right. This may ultimately not be held up as constitutional, and that is an important consideration for the Judiciary Committee. As the Higher Ed Committee, we're concerned with whether it is good higher ed policy to allow race to be considered. The Grutter decision does say it is permissible. Prop 209 may say otherwise. That's something for a court to decide or a Judiciary Committee to consider. So I will be supporting this bill as higher ed policy, notwithstanding potential judicial complications down the road. Anyone else wish to comment or question? Do you wish to close, Mr. Hernandez?
I want to thank you for the time for listening to the bill. I respectfully ask for your aye vote, Mr. Chair and members.
Okay, the motion is due pass to the Judiciary Committee. The Secretary will please call the roll.
Block.
Aye.
Block, aye. Norby. Adams. Adams, no. Chesbrough. Aye. Chesbrough, aye. Fong. Fuller. Fuller, no. Galgiani. Galgiani, aye. Portantino. Portantino, aye. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's out.
You have 5 votes. The bill is out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
To Judiciary. Mr. Blumenfeld, sir. Okay, we move on now to Mr. Blumenfeld's bill.
What's that? Oh, thank you. Yeah,
as we sit here, I'm chairing a committee on the other side of the building. Hard to be in two places at once. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. New Chair, for allowing me the opportunity to bring this bill. Members, I'm here today to talk about AB 2382. This is a bill about physical therapy. Physical therapy is one of the top 3 jobs in demand in the state of California right now and across the country. Employment opportunities are expected to expand by over 30% in the next 5 years. California students seeking to enter this hot job market may be forced into paying more than double for their education because affordable avenues through the California State University system will be closed off soon unless we take action. AB 2382 would allow CSU to award clinical doctoral degrees for graduates in physical therapy. It creates an exemption to California's master plan for higher education to preserve an affordable avenue for educating and training physical therapists through the CSU system. The bill seeks to clear a hurdle created by a new national accreditation standard that required college physical therapy programs to award clinical doctoral degrees by 2018. That's why this bill is coming before us today, because of action that's been taken on the national level that forces us into taking action here on the state level. Out of the 212 physical therapy programs in the country, only 6 have not made the required changeover to clinical doctoral degrees. 4 of these 6 are CSU, including the longstanding program in my district, Northridge, and that affects a lot of students in the district and a lot of families. Loss of accreditation would force the closure of the CSU programs that account for more than 1/3, about 36% of the students currently entering the profession with a master's degree. California's master's plan for higher education has prevented California State University from readily making this change. As you're no doubt aware, the master plan allows CSU to grant entry-level professional degrees and gives jurisdiction for awarding doctoral degrees to the University of California. Previous attempts to allow CSU to award doctoral degrees in conjunction with the University of California have met with very limited or no success at all. There's only one joint program operating between CSU and UC, and that's in San Francisco, and only 10 students have graduated, and enrollment currently is 0. By allowing CSU to award the required doctoral degree, California would be able to continue to offer low and moderate income students from diverse backgrounds an opportunity to pursue a career in physical therapy. There would be no cost to the state associated with a CSU conferring the doctoral in physical therapy practice, clinical doctoral. The CSU physical therapy programs would be able to offer courses needed, and no additional state funding would be required. At this time, I want to accept as authors' amendments 3 changes that were referenced in your committee analysis. One was the cost issue, to add language to clarify program cost factors as suggested on page 2 of the committee analysis. Second is the definition of doctoral of physical therapy. I'm going to work with your committee consultant to add the definition for doctoral of physical therapy as suggested on page 3 of your analysis. And third is the statewide evaluation to provide for CSU to review of the doctorate of physical therapy degree as suggested on page 3 of your analysis. Also, I want to add findings and declarations that reflect my discussions with the UC representatives. The provision specifies that the exemption to the master plan applies only to physical therapists, and that the CSU doctoral degree is distinguished from doctoral degree programs at UCs. After working with them, they are neutral on this bill. The bill is supported by the California Hospital Association, the Physical Therapy Board of California, California Physical Therapists Association, and numerous students in CSU physical therapy programs. In fact, we have a number of students here. If I could just, instead of having them all come up, ask the students who support this to stand up. All right, so we have a lot of supporters here. And on their behalf, and on behalf of California Jobs, I ask for your aye vote in favor of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the bill with amendments.
Moved and seconded. We'll now hear from your witnesses.
Mr. Chairman and members, I won't make a statement, but introduce myself, Carl London, representing the California Physical Therapy Association. Happy to answer any questions you might have, and also wanted to introduce today Dr. Cheryl Lowe and Dr. Nancy Bill to speak on the bill.
Hi, my name is Dr. Cheryl Lowe. I'm a physical therapist. I'm a graduate of Cal State Northridge. I was a young mother who went back to school with 2 small children on the GI Bill, and I couldn't afford to go to a private institution to go far from my home. And I'm also now the chair of the program at Cal State Northridge of physical therapy. And I'm proud to say the 13 PT programs in California train and graduate approximately 500 physical therapists every year, with approximately 150 of those graduates from the 4 CSU programs. The state of California has invested much over the last 40 years in the 4 CSU programs and the joint UCSF San Francisco State program in order to continue to meet the need for professionals in the state of California and to provide for the workforce of the future. There's a compelling need to change the statute and allow an exception to the master plan. As amended, this AB 2382 will allow us to do just that. It would allow us to award the entry-level professional doctorate with no extra cost to the state. The fee schedule instituted for the EDD presently is roughly $15,000 per year and would cover any additional costs and still be affordable for California students at almost half the cost of the private programs. We do need to increase the amount and complexity of our curriculum and the time spent in our clinical internships to meet the professional standard, and we're ready to do that. The opposition is concerned about our capacity to provide the appropriate clinical internships. We already have trained faculty, staff, classroom, and laboratories, and contracts with over 350 clinical sites for our internships, including many hospitals, including UC hospitals, private clinics. My program, as well as the 3 other CSU PT programs, receive nearly 500 applications a year for each of their 36 to 40 openings. Please allow the students of the state of California to continue to access higher education and the profession of physical therapy by voting yes on AB 2382. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Dr. Nancy Bill, and I happen to be a professor and chair emeritus of the Department of Physical Therapy and Rehab Science at UCSF. I also graduated from UC Berkeley. I graduated from UCSF. I graduated from San Francisco State. I even graduated and got my PhD in a joint program between UC Berkeley and San Francisco State. My husband graduated from UC Berkeley. 2 of my kids graduated from UC Berkeley. My father-in-law graduated from UC Berkeley. Anybody else you want to know?
Are you saying you're a UC person?
I am speaking for myself as a professional in physical therapy. I am not. I am very clear that I'm not speaking for UC, I'm not speaking for UCSF, I'm not speaking for CSU or San Francisco State University. I have 46 years of leadership in this profession, and I've been an educator, a scholar, and a clinician both at UC and at San Francisco State. There is no reason we should close 4 programs in a public university in the state of California. We have been leaders. I think many of the faculty you have at CSU are not only leaders in California, but leaders in the United States. It is absolutely unheard of at this time of a large proportion of our people in this state that are disabled and impaired from surviving wars, head injuries, stroke, and even surviving serious impact of cerebral palsy and other kinds of injuries to children. You need physical therapists and people in rehab more now than ever before. It would be really silly that we would be ending up as a state falling short 30 to 50% in the next 10 years. So I hope that you will support this exception to the master plan to keep these 4 programs alive in California. And thank you.
Thank you. Other than those who stood before, are there other people in support? No, other than those, anybody want to come forward who wants to make a comment in support?
Good afternoon. I'm Patricia Blaisdell, and I'm here on behalf of the California Hospital Association. Our member providers employ thousands of physical therapists in a variety of settings throughout the state, and based on our desire to maintain accessible and affordable training programs to individuals interested in pursuing physical therapy, and the need to maintain an adequate supply of individuals in this critical profession, we support AB 2382. Thank you.
I'm Susan McGinty, Director of the Department of Physical Therapy, California State University, Sacramento. I'm here in support. and I would love to have the opportunity to continue to have access for underrepresented and lower socioeconomic groups through the California State University system to this profession, which will lose a significant portion of access if these programs close. Thank you very much. And I have some letters of support as well as copies of all of the clinical facilities that are contracted with our institution. We have over 500 clinical sites across the state.
Okay, when you leave the table, you can give them to the sergeant. He'll pass them out to us. Are there any witnesses in opposition? Please come forward.
My name is Tim Shannon, and I'm here to help. From the California Orthopedic Association, we do have some concerns with this bill. We sent a letter to you. I've talked with your staff. I've also talked with the author's staff. I think the concerns that we have with the bill are actually likely to be addressed by the amendments. Some of the things that your staff analysis brought up with regard to distinguishing the current master's programs at the CSUs to make sure you have additional clinical rotations. This is one thing. And orthopedic surgeons, by the way, before I continue, I want to emphasize we do support the profession. We work very, very closely. We don't want to downplay the need for having physical therapists. There is a need for them. And I think the point I want to make is we do want the doctorate to mean something more than just the master's program. I do have a question about whether, if you add additional clinical rotations to beef up the master's program, whether that can be done without cost. That is something that occurred to me that might be hard to pull off. I just want to say we would very much like to work with the author and his staff as this bill moves to the Business and Professions Committee and work with them to develop the definition of physical therapy as well as distinguish the degree from the master's degree.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Any other witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, we'll move to questions. Mr. Portantino.
Mine's more in a, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mine's more in the form of a comment. I think this is a very necessary proposal for the reasons that have been stated. We run the risk of losing these programs if we don't conform with federal law, federal standards. And we generally have the capacity to do this. I think it's going to be a win-win for the state and not a cost burden, and certainly for all of the access and affordability issues that have been brought up, this is the right thing to do. Some of you know I was critical of the nursing doctorate last year. I think that's a completely and totally different situation where we're creating something new that, in my opinion, was unnecessary. This is a conformity issue, a necessary thing that we have to do to maintain the integrity and to maintain these important programs for our system, and I wholeheartedly support it.
Thank you, Mr. Portantino. I have Mr. Chesbro, Mr. Adams, and Ms. Galgiani on speakers list, and Mr. Ruskin.
I concur that it's a good idea, but I do have a question, and I'm hoping that there's someone representing the Chancellor's Office or the CSU system here. Is there anyone?
Ms. Amaripa? Yes.
Yeah. And while she's coming up, let me just say that my concern has to do with capacity, and it's been being described as keeping these programs open, but in order to have a PhD and doctorate, you have to have a master's, and so I'm assuming that there's some expansion or need for additional expense, and we all know that the system is under a tremendous amount of pressure. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't be asking this question. But just for example, the Faculty Senate at Humboldt State yesterday voted to recommend that the nursing program at Humboldt State be eliminated. You know, the one program they have that we know that there are jobs for the graduates, I'm sure there's good reasons. I'm not relative to the other programs, not bringing that up as the issue. The question is, given that's just a symptom of what's going on with our whole higher education system, particularly the CSU, and so I want to be reassured that we're not adding to the capacity crisis that the university is facing by taking this step.
Okay.
Karen Zama with the California State University. Senator Chesbro, Assembly Member, well, you're always a senator. Senator Chesbro, I did talk to your staff earlier today, and I appreciate the concern. I do think that the recommendations to the President regarding the Humboldt nursing program, our recommendations. We take seriously our role and responsibility in providing nursing.
And I only brought that up as one example.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure I could have brought up dozens of others. So.
Right. The way to answer the question is that without the bill that's before you, I can guarantee you that there'll be 4 PT programs that'll be shut down that are currently offering programs and the professionals that we need in the field. Our 4 campuses, based on the work I've done with them, believe very strongly they have the capacity and have the support in the community, the health community, as it relates to their involvement. So we're confident. We've had a neutral position on this bill for lots of different reasons, but I do think we feel strongly that we are in jeopardy of losing these programs if we don't take action soon.
Well, that's a strong argument, and I probably would have voted for it, but I just also needed to raise the larger question of what's going on with the CSU and whether it has ripple effects, elsewhere to be doing this.
If I could briefly respond as well, let me clarify. This is not a PhD. This is a professional clinical doctorate. So students apply after they complete their bachelor's degree, and it's a 3-year professional doctorate, clinical doctorate, and that's why it's differentiated from a research or scholarly doctorate.
Thank you. Mr. Adams.
Well, I agree with the budgetary concerns that Mr. Chesbrough raises, but it is important to distinguish this from an academic research or a scholarly degree. And at the end of the day, this is about getting jobs out there. The state of California is not in a place where we can be tinkering with the idea of forestalling new jobs entering our market, and especially new private sector, non-taxpayer funded jobs. It is absolutely a tantamount concern to the state that we provide opportunities for those kind of jobs to be expanded and grown. And I'm happy to not only make the motion to support the bill, but I would ask that the author please take me on as a co-author of the bill.
Be delighted.
And we'll take that as a motion. Do pass as amended to Business and Professions Committee. Is there a second? It's been seconded. Ms. Galgiani, you're next on speaker list.
I also would like to be added as a co-author, and I want to speak from a real practical experience because from 1985 to 1993, I worked as a physical therapy aide at San Joaquin General Hospital. I worked with stroke patients. I did debridement for diabetic patients that were about close to losing a limb if the infection wasn't stopped. I worked with head trauma patients. I did everything. There isn't any kind of patient I didn't work with as an aide. And my experience at the county hospital, there were times that we were worried that we would have to shut down the program because we weren't sure we were going to have a licensed therapist there because of the tremendous shortage. When I worked at Dameron Hospital in Stockton, we had a company that would bring on graduating students from out of state, and that company would agree to pay their tuition while they were in college just so that they could get a commitment from them that they would work at Dameron after the fact. And they'd get their year done and off they'd go because there was such a long list of people who wanted to hire them instead that we had a very difficult time keeping licensed therapists. And I was one of the longest staying persons working there that just saw this continual flow of graduate students coming in that I helped train, actually, if you want to be truthful about it. And so from a practical standpoint, it just makes absolute sense. And I will also say that back during this time, what you needed to practice physical therapy was a bachelor's degree. And even then, for people like myself who worked during the day at our daytime jobs at hospital facilities and the like that would have wanted to go on to get a physical therapy license, we were precluded from doing so if we had to work and support ourselves because our choice was either to quit our job at the hospital that we were at and get a night job at Denny's or something, or you just couldn't get your degree. So I was one that probably would have gone on, but the way that the system was set up, it precluded me as a working student from doing that. I also want to say that in our nursing homes, there's a shortage of physical therapists. I worked at nursing homes where we had somebody from the registry come in a couple of times a week to make it legal, and then I worked as the aide kind of in between. So there's a huge shortage. You know, we talk a lot about providing health care and reducing health care costs. I think a huge piece of that is being able to make sure that we have access to the professionals who can provide the care. And that starts with being able to graduate the professionals. And as long as we're going to continue to raise the bar and not allow the opportunity for students to come in, we're not going to have professionals. And I can guarantee you to this day, facilities are still using the registry where there's no continuity at a facility, and that's not good for care either. So I'm really pleased that you're doing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galgiani. Mr. Ruskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to vote in favor of the bill. I want to explain my thoughts in relation to the master plan, particularly because I have the privilege of co-chairing the Joint Committee on Review of the Master Plan, which is currently underway, and why I feel there is no conflict between exploring the review of the Master Plan and supporting this bill. And focus on three reasons. First, because the review that we're conducting of the Master Plan is intentionally a focused review, focusing on items such as affordability, access, transfer and articulation, accountability. We chose not to intentionally focus on such items as mission, though in its deliberation the committee may decide to take some action in regard to that. It has not been the intention of the committee to focus on mission per se. The second reason I'm supporting the bill and don't see a conflict is that the program, the doctorate program that you're proposing, is different than anything at UC, as UC itself has said. And thirdly, because it's an urgent matter. We really don't have the luxury of doing anything else if we're going to save the program, save jobs. And so with those, for those three reasons, I will be supporting the bill today.
Thank you, Mr. Ruskin. Mr. Norby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been gone for about the last 40 minutes because I'm also Vice Chair of the Committee on Aging, and so I missed some important issues that were before you. But certainly there is a nexus between the two, because as our society ages, as people live longer lives, as there are more of them, their needs in this area are going to grow. And this program will address that. I received a master's at Cal State Fullerton in history, and certainly that's a scholarly field. Sometimes you have to stretch in terms of its practical applicability to a specific profession other than teaching history. Although from a generalist standpoint, certainly understanding history, the lessons that it gives us, which are subject to interpretation, can bring greater wisdom. So I don't discount it at all, but certainly the nexus with this field and the needs that we're going to be experiencing are very, very practical, because the relief of pain, the relief of physical discomfort is probably the highest calling that a person can make. There are different ways to approach that, and traditionally, oftentimes when a professional in the medical field couldn't figure out why you hurt, they would simply say, well, it's all in your mind. Well, of course it's all in your mind. All pain goes to your mind, and it tells your brain that you're in pain. No one can discount someone else's pain. If you think you're in pain, by definition you are. And physical therapy is a way to approach that. And many people go through many different processes: conventional medicine, acupuncture, physical therapy, yoga, to address this until they find a way to do so. And it is a very long and a very arduous journey, which all of us will experience to a certain extent, because none of us will live, we live our full, was it 3 score, 2 score, 4 score, and whatever it is, that we could live without that. So I support it, and if it means that we're tweaking the mission of the university, state university system, well, that's why we're here.
Thank you, Mr. Norby. A couple of questions, a question and a comment, Mr. Blumenfield. Regarding the proposed amendment requiring CPEC approval, you didn't mention that in your statement. Do you accept that amendment as well?
Yeah, that's no problem. I didn't mention that one.
I don't recall you mentioning it now. Okay, just wanted to clear that up for the record. Now a comment, Mr. Blumenfield, this bill clearly violates the master plan for higher education. It clearly impinges on the mission of the UC and expands the mission of the CSU, and it does it for very good reason. there's an important need for this bill. I applaud you for bringing this bill to us. And as Mr. Norby said, and Mr. Ruskin, sometimes when there is a high need, when common sense calls for it, the master plan has served us well for 50 years. But changes in the master plan are needed in certain times, and I will be supporting this bill. We have a motion. We have a second. At this point, I'll ask the Secretary to please call the roll.
Block.
Aye.
Block, I. Norby.
Aye.
Norby, I. Adams. Adams, I. Chesbro. Chesbro, I. Fong.
Aye.
Fong, I. Fuller. Galgiani. Galgiani, I. Portantino. Portantino, I. Ruskin. Ruskin, I.
Your bill is out. Congratulations. Thank you all for attending. At this point, well, when the room clears, we'll move to a consent calendar.
Mr. Chair, I'd move the consent.
Okay, the consent calendar has been moved. Is there a second? Moved by Mr. Adams, seconded by Mr. Fong. The Secretary, please read the roll.
Block.
Aye.
Block, I. Norby. Adams. Adams, I. Chesbro. Chesbro, I. Fong.
Aye.
Fong, I. Fuller. Galgiani. Portantino. Portantino, I. Ruskin. Ruskin, I.
Okay, the Okay, the consent calendar passes. We have one bill left. I'd ask those in the room to please move out as expeditiously as possible so we can continue. And Mr. Portantino, you are the last bill of the afternoon, if you'd like to come forward.
You're torn. I'm stealing her from you. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair and
Markey.
members. AB 1889 provides for several substantive and technical changes to the Private Postsecondary Education Act of 2009, enacted by AB 48. Specifically, this bill makes 5 changes to the Act. First, the bill requires institutions offering doctorate-level degrees to be accredited, and I believe this provision is necessary to ensure a basic level of educational quality for doctoral degrees issued by private colleges in the state. I also understand that the Chair has some concerns about making sure that those folks who are in a current system are accommodated, and in discussions with the Chair, I'm happy to allay those fears, and that anybody in a current program, we're going to make sure that the enactment date is appropriate. So I know that's one of the concerns. We're also looking at that issue as this bill hopefully moves out today. We're going to continue to work on the language. It's my intent to have something in place that just lets people know that, in particular with health-related professions, that the doctorate degree does have value, and those folks are trained to do the profession that the degree calls them out to do. Secondly, the bill allows the Bureau of Private Postsecondary to authorize ability to benefit tests if a relevant U.S. Department of Education test is not available. It's come to my attention that certain training programs do not have relevant U.S. Department of Ed approved tests, and this provision is intended to provide flexibility in such cases. Third, the bill limits what types of jobs can be counted as job placements. Under the language proposed in the bill, the job must require the skills that the student learned through their education in order to be counted as a job placement. And for example, a graduate of a culinary school who gets a job in a restaurant must obtain a level of job where the skills they learned in that program, such as how to cook or how to work in a kitchen, are required for the job. A job in a restaurant sweeping floors would not necessarily qualify as a job placement with that example. I believe this change will ensure institutions don't inappropriately inflate job placements, and if there had been time for me to make this change last year in AB 48, I probably would have done it then. Fourth, this bill corrects a technical error regarding refund calculations. And lastly, this bill clarifies that 5 post-secondary education specialists outlined in the bill are to be full-time housed in Sacramento. And I appreciate the support of the committee with AB 48, and I respectfully request your support of these cleanup measures. And as with AB 48, this is a process. This is a bill that is trying to, or it's an issue that has many facets and many different players and opinions. And as we did with AB 48, we took our time, and at the end of the day, we got a pretty good bill to get the governor's signature. We're going to continue to work on those concerns, and I've talked to a number of the schools and a number of the advocates, and we're going to continue to try to make this into a place that solves problems without creating new ones, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Ruskin? Bill's been moved by Mr. Ruskin, seconded by Mr. Chesbro. Any witnesses in support?
Judith Michaels, California Federation of Teachers, and we did have some problems with the bill last year, and we don't have an official support position on this, but I think these amendments, if you will, or this new bill that corrects some of the shortcomings of the bill that the governor signed would be something that we could support.
Thank you, Ms. Michaels. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Brooks Ellison on behalf of Kaplan. Kaplan is wholly owned by the Washington Post and is an international provider of educational services with over 100,000 students and 70 campuses. And we think this is a huge deal, not a small or technical amendment, and it was part of the deal that Mr. Portantino put together last year, which was really the culmination of probably 3 years or more of negotiations, started long before even Senator Parada tried to do it, and we were Kaplan was part of that process of trying to bring everybody together. But to really understand this, you have to understand the context of how you do this. So schools are required, and the problem that we have is graduates employed in the field, and schools are required that are regulated by the Bureau to report and publish a school performance fact sheet. And the reason that you do that, you want to give students good information. And the key fact that you would report is job placement rate. And any student would want to know that, right? I'm going to go to school, I'm going to spend my money, and I want to know if I'm going to get a job. But schools that are regulated, it's not enough to get a job. You have to get a job within 6 months. You have to be gainfully employed. And the deal that was cut under AB 48 said required, the skills were required, or provided a significant advantage in obtaining the job. Significant advantage, important or critical benefit is the definition of that. So that's important for a student to know. When you take that out, you actually are taking away good information from a student, because students are all into numbers. When I went to law school, I wanted to know what the bar passage rate was. That was the key number, right? Because that was going to help me decide. And we get to those numbers pretty quickly. But this is a number that's misleading, because you could have, out of 100 graduates, you could have 100 people get a job. And that would be a good thing. And you could have 90 of those get a job because they got a significant benefit based on going to that. But now what this says is you can only if you can document what's required. Well, that's almost impossible. Think about it. If you're an employer or a student or a school, how are you going to document that the skills, not simply a degree, but the skills that you received were required? And a violation, it's a material violation of the Act if you're wrong. So good schools like Kaplan are going to have to default to the more conservative number. So take that 100 graduates, maybe 90 got a significant advantage. But how many can we actually document, and what is the cost? Maybe it could be 10. So unregulated schools, now let's talk about that. Remember, the Department of Education doesn't distinguish between nationally accredited and regionally accredited. So regionally accredited schools aren't covered by this. They would be able to show 100 out of 100, okay? We might be able to show 90 out of 100. With this change, it could be 10. That would be such a complete competitive disadvantage and so misleading to students that it is terribly unfair. And it was part of a deal with 100 parts to it over years to put that deal together. I give Mr. Portantino a lot of credit. But that's not just pulling one thread out of the deal. That's pulling the entire deal apart. Because now, if you're a regulated school, you have to report required. And think of it, Mr. Chairman, how is the Bureau going to enforce this and track it? I don't think a student could do it. I don't think a school could do it. I don't think an employer could do it, which means, again, good schools are going to try, and they're going to err on the side of caution because they don't want the violations, but the bad schools are going to ignore it. So this does not do anything to help a student. It doesn't do anything to help a school. It's terribly unfair, and we should not undo the deal in what is perceived as a technical cleanup after the fact.
Thank you. We'll hear from two more witnesses at 2 minutes each, and then other witnesses, just your opposition.
Good afternoon, Laura Brown on behalf of the California Coalition of Accredited Schools. We do have an opposed unless amended position on the bill, specifically related to Section 94928E. As Brooks just mentioned, I couldn't have said it more eloquently. We just have a real concern about how schools will use valid placements now when calculating their placement figures with this proposed change. Part of the benefit of earning a degree from an institution of higher ed is that the degree provides the graduate with a significant advantage in hiring decisions. And I think, as Brooks mentioned, we have a strong concern that the elimination of the portion of significant advantage really begs the question of who will be the final arbiter of what skills are deemed required when it comes to graduate employment placement figures. So we would urge this committee to not approve that proposed amendment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred Main with Manat, Phelps & Phillips on behalf of Career Education Corporation, who have 5 schools in the state. We oppose the bill unless amended for the same reason on employment inside the field. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have another minute for opposition if anybody wants to address.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Matt Back with Ackler & Associates on behalf of the California Association of Private Post-Secondary Schools, or CAPS. Certainly a lot easier to say. We have a different concern, which is prohibition on the approved schools being allowed to offer a doctoral degree. We've had significant conversations with the Assemblyman, which we appreciate. We think we're going to be able to work that out, and we look forward to doing that. Thank you.
Emily Pappas, Lehman, Levi, Pappas, and Sadler on behalf of Corinthian Colleges. I want to echo the same concerns, specifically in regards to graduates employed in the field, but appreciate working with the author and your committee staff who have worked through issues, and we look forward to continue to work with them.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Larissa Cespedes here on behalf of EDMC, which owns the Art Institute and Argosy Schools. We are also concerned regarding the graduate in placement in the field issue, but we were very supportive of AB 48. We look forward to working this issue out. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chesbrough.
Yes, I'm a brand new, newly minted member of this committee, and I feel like I just dropped into something that's been underway for a while. Mr. Ellison seems like he raises some points very worthy of consideration. I just want to ask Mr. Portantino whether you have a commitment and a willingness to try to find, like, as you had previously, find the common ground to resolve the problems that have been brought up.
No, it's my hope to find the common ground. Frankly, we haven't got there yet. I haven't made a specific commitment on language. Many of the concerns that were articulated could also be said about the current language in the bill. It's subject to interpretation as well. And Mr. Ellison and I, and as a matter of fact, everyone spoke here, we have a very good working relationship. It's my hope at the end of the day to be able to resolve these issues. I have not made a commitment in how they would be resolved, but it's always been my style, so to speak, to try to bring consensus and that elusive compromise to the table, and I'll continue to have that spirit as this hopefully works out of this committee.
Well, I arrived intending to vote for you. I felt some brakes being put on a little bit, slowing it down a little bit with some questions. I trust your capacity to work with the affected parties to try to reach common ground, and I didn't expect you to say exactly how at this point, but so I will be voting in favor of it.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Ruskin? Okay, I just want to say that having talked with the author previously, he's given me assurances that he will work to protect those students who are currently in doctoral programs, to be sure that those programs certainly exist through the tenure of those current students. And he's also now expressed that he will work with Mr. Ellison and others to explore language that might be satisfactory in terms of job placement. I'm prepared to vote aye to move this on toward the Senate and let amendments be worked out as the process continues. At this point, we have a motion and a second. I'd ask the Secretary to please call the roll.
Block.
Aye.
Block, aye. Norby.
No.
Norby, no. Adams. Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Fong.
Aye.
Fong, aye. Fuller. Galgiani. Galgiani, aye. Portantino.
Aye.
Portantino, aye. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye.
Your bill is out. Thank you, Ms. Portantino.
Thank you.
Now we have. Okay, we will keep meeting open for another 15 minutes so members can add on. Members who are not present, if you're seeing this in your office, please come up to add on to bills. Will Secretary please call the bills and give members an opportunity to add on?
AB 1890. Yeah.
Yes.
Norby,
Yes,
aye. Fuller's not here.
Yeah. Anyone who didn't vote on consent calendar? Yes.
AB 1971. Norby.
Yes.
Norby, aye. Fong. Fong, aye. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye. AB 2047. Norby.
No.
Norby, no. Fong. Fong, aye.
That bill is out.
AB 2079. Norby.
Yes.
Norby, aye. Adams. Fong. Fong, aye. Galgiani. Galgiani, aye. Portantino. 2079. Portantino, aye. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye.
That bill is out.
AB 2159. Norby.
Aye.
Norby, aye. Fong.
As amended.
Yes.
Can you explain, I wasn't here then, what happened to the bill, what are we voting on?
Okay. 2159 by Mr. Anderson was amended. The portion that dealt with AB 540 repeal was amended out of the bill completely. What is left is that veterans be allowed in-state tuition or fees to higher education.
Thank you for the clarification. Aye.
Fong, aye. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye.
That's out.
AB 2203. Norby.
2203. Yes. Aye.
Norby, aye. Adams, aye. Fong.
Aye.
Fong, aye. Portantino. Portantino, aye. Ruskin.
Yeah. The amendments that were suggested in the analysis were accepted by the author.
Ruskin, aye. AB 2297. Chesbro. Chesbro, aye. Fong.
Aye.
Fong, aye. Galgiani. Galgiani, aye. Portantino. Portantino, aye.
The bill is out.
2344. Norby.
Aye.
Norby, aye. Fuller.
That's consent.
That's consent.
Sorry. AB 2382. Fuller. AB 2682. Norby.
Get back to me on that one.
Okay. Adams. Adams, aye. Fong. Fong, aye. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye.
Okay.
Okay. AB 1889. Adams. Adams, no. 2079, Adams. Adams, aye.
South. Anthony, Mr. Portino, do you have a question?
Yeah, so 7, 13, and 14 were pulled?
Yes. Any other questions or business before the group? Yeah, we're going to keep it open for 5 more minutes.